ST 2016. This is interviews, music reviews, and more. This is The Hotter Show.
What is up, everybody? We're Rolling Audio here today on episode 324 of The Hotter Show. I hope you guys are doing absolutely fantastic. Thank you so very much for tuning in and clicking that play button on today's episode of the podcast. I have a kick-ass episode for you here today. I do every single week right here on The Hotter Show. I sit down with my new buddy, Bryson Evans from the Stone Cold Crows. He's the drummer and the backing vocalist for the Stone Cold Crows. And we have a badass conversation talking all about kind of the fun, theatrical rock and roll style of the Stone Cold Crows and kind of where that comes from, a little bit about his background in different bands, a little bit about how he got started with music and influences. And we talk all about their brand new single, which you're going to learn all about in this episode, which it actually drops tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that. I don't want to give anything away, but stay tuned because you're going to learn all about that single. And let me just say, it is a badass song. So stay tuned for that and to learn all about it. But before we jump into my chat with Bryson, I got to take a second to give a huge thank you to everybody who supported last week's episode of the show, in which I did another edition of the albums that made me, a fun new segment I've been doing here on the show. I've only done a couple so far, but they seem to be really well received. And it's a lot of fun for me to go and break down some albums that really mean a lot to me. And it was so much fun to go back and really think about Godsmack's album Awake and what it meant to me when I was younger, when I first heard it. And then what it means to me now as an adult and how I've almost grown up with that album and how the lyrics of the songs mean something different to me now in adulthood. So it was a lot of fun to go back and kind of break down that record track by track and what I love about it and why it is an album that made me. So be sure to go check that out if you missed it. But for right now, we're going to jump into my chat with Bryson Evans from the Stone Cold Crows. Let's get into it. We got Bryson Emmons, drums and vocalist for the Stone Cold Crows, here on The Hotter Show. Bryson, what's up, brother? How are you?
Good, man. What's going on, dude? Happy 6 years, by the way. I know this is your anniversary the other day. So congrats, dude.
Oh, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that. That means a lot right out of the gate.
it's a big time. Like doing a podcast for 6 years, it takes a while. Like Mitch, he has his, and he's only about 14 episodes in, and it feels like he's been doing it forever. So, yeah, man.
Well,
that's awesome for you.
Thank you. I really seriously appreciate that. Thank you, man. And, it's funny, like, it was just a week or so ago that I did that as we're recording this. And like, a lot of the reason why I started this podcast was because I wanted to keep in touch with bands I had met during my time working at a music store and discover new bands and meet new people. And
cool. One
of the reasons I love doing this show so much is I'm introduced to bands like yourselves who I don't know if I would have discovered you had, you guys not seen an interview I did with friends of yours who have been on the show. And next thing you know, I get sent this badass band and website, and I'm like, yo, where the hell have these guys been in my life, man? So it's cool, and I'm happy that we're able to link up, man, because just straight up, like, Stone Cold Crows, first off, badass name.
Thanks,
right
dude.
Out of the gate.
It wasn't the original name, but that's the name we ended up sticking with.
Well, now I got to ask what the original name was.
So originally we were going to go with Murderous Crows.
Ooh, that's hard.
Yeah.
Murderous Crows.
Literally, like, we ordered somebody to do a logo for us, and they was like, yep, all right, in the works. And then all of a sudden, Mitch just, like, after we've been looking for months just to make sure that there's nobody else out there, all of a sudden Mitch just stumbles across this, like, little Bandcamp page that's called Murderous Crows, and they had, like, one song, and it was posted like 6 years ago, and we were like, they don't seem active anymore, but let's just avoid it. And then we came up with Stone Cold Crows, and it kind of has like a little more of a flow to it. It has like the 3 syllables, and so we feel like it works a little bit better.
My thing with band names is always, it's a very simple concept for me, right? Is how does it sound when it's chanted?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Murderous Crows and Stone Cold Crows. See? Like, it just works. Yes.
You need the triplet. It always works really good.
Yeah, some of the best bands, go by that, man. Like it's funny to think about that. Well, one thing right out of the gate that like to me really sets you guys apart from a lot of bands is this, you go on stonecoldcrows.com, check it out, and you guys have this whole, like, yes, you have badass music, and we're obviously going to get into that, but the whole presentation of the band as a whole, it's very, and I know you've gotten this comparison before, and I'm about to make it too. It's very kind of Alice Cooper-y, very like you're presenting it's like a show just by looking at your guys' imagery and kind of your branding, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, we like to consider ourselves cinematic hard rock.
Right.
So we take a lot of inspiration from film scores and just even the way movies present themselves. Like a lot of movies have the trailer. So at the beginning of Stone Cold Crow's birth, we like to do a lot of like movie style trailers for our releases. But now with Mitch living in Ottawa and stuff, it gets a little bit trickier to keep on doing them for every single release. But yeah, we like to try to like play off how movies do things. How like they have the movie posters, they have the trailer. So we take a lot of inspiration from that.
Which is so cool to see. Like, yeah, bands nowadays, especially, I feel, are very aware of their imagery and like we need to present ourselves in a certain way. Mm-hmm. But it's almost like it to me anyway, it seems almost like, okay, hey, let's start a band. Here's kind of the brand we're going to be, and here's our imagery and all that. Oh, by the way, we should maybe write some music. Like, was that kind of how it was presented? Like, how did the Stone Cold Crows kind of come to be?
That's kind of pretty close, actually. Mitch got a hold of me. He's a longtime friend of mine. We used to play in a band years and years and years ago called the Creekwater Junkies. And we were like, I see you're like smiling there. You're like, all right, I got to know what this band's all about. It was,
I was going to say, just based off that name, I need to know, but we're going to get into that in a bit.
We were like Lynyrd Skynyrd meets Metallica.
Yes.
So we were just boozing it up in our early 20s. But anyway, so years later, Mitch decides to get a hold of me after being out of the game for a long time. And he goes, yo, okay, let's start again. Let's do another band. I have an idea. And he sent me some demos, and they were just skeletons. And originally they were like acoustic, like blues, rocky kind of stuff. Like we almost turned out like Nathaniel Rateliff-y kind of stuff. Okay. Because we knew we wanted, we knew we wanted to use horns and everything like that. And we had these skeletons of these like awesome blues songs. So that's what we were going to do. And we sat there for like a whole year, basically planning out everything about the band other than the music, because it was COVID. We couldn't do anything else. We couldn't get together. We couldn't go to the studio. We couldn't do shows. So we just did our research. We read all kinds of books, listened to all kinds of podcasts, and we started just like diving into the business world of it. And instead of creating all the music and everything first, and then figure out, okay, how are we going to market this and how are we going to sell it? We decided, all right, well, maybe COVID is a blessing in disguise. And we did all that business stuff first, got it out of the way. And we go, okay, now we know what we're doing with this. Let's start making music and start making videos and start creating content and make ourselves aware of, present ourselves to the world. So we finally jumped on social media and, announced, hey, we're a thing. And then by the time we got into the studio, well, being hard rockers, we couldn't really get away from that. And as soon as we started playing the songs, it was just like, oh, okay, so we aren't a blues rock band. We're a band.
No, we're gonna have some heavy guitars and shit like that. I mean, come on, man. That's what we're doing here, right? And I mean, that's what's so. And if you were like, I think what's so cool with the name and kind of the presentation, it would work with that type of vibe. If you decided down the road, let's do a acoustic blues record or some shit, like it would totally work. That's what I think I love about, like I was saying to you before we started, I'm very obsessed with branding and like names and things of that nature. So again, I see Stone Cold Crows, I see the imagery, and to hear that that's kind of how It's like you guys were it's almost like you were presented, like you presented to the world, like, hey, here's our content. By the way, music's coming. Like that's so cool to hear that. That's kind of how you guys approached it.
Yeah, we were very meticulous about our branding. It's very, very, very important to us. So we don't like just throw it out there in the world. Like when we think about what are we going to do for the next t-shirt design, we make sure it's on brand, and we make sure all of our ideas are on brand as well. So it's very important, especially nowadays when you're trying to make a name for yourself online, because there's no shows to go to. People go, oh wow, that was a cool band, I'm going to check it out. No, we're trying to weed through the mass amount of bands that are online already, and we're trying to stand out by making sure we have artwork that stands out.
Right. And that's something that, as great as it is to play shows and be that band that, oh my God, like they were so great live. Mm-hmm. There's thousands and thousands of bands that are great live. There's thousands of bands that have good music. It's what sets you apart. What is different when you're presenting, and it's kind of an unpopular opinion, I think, a little bit, because everyone wants to believe, myself included, that it's all just about the music and a good song is a good song. And it's like, there's lots of bands I know that are great, but they're not doing anything for one reason or another. Why is that? Is it because of how they presented themselves? Is it because they go on stage wearing jeans and a t-shirt, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it's like, there's some showmanship that you guys have, and maybe that's because of maybe like some of the music you guys are raised on. Like, were you kind of raised on like kind of that more cinematic hard rock and kind of the rock and roll where it was presented as a show instead of just, hey, here's a bunch of guys on stage and wearing t-shirts and jeans? Yeah,
definitely, for sure. We love all the big names. Like some of our biggest influences are from the classic rock eras, where they have the huge stadium stage and they put on the big show. Like it was brought up, Alice Cooper, big influence for us. We love Rammstein because of their show that they put
I could see that.
Yeah. We've been waiting to go for their show for like years now because of COVID, but hopefully soon we'll get to go see them. But like even bands like Kiss, like one of our favorite shows when we used to get ready for Creekwater shows, when we were packing up our gear, we would load in the Kiss Symphony DVD and we would watch that while we packed up. And just like the show they would put on, they're always like, oh man, like it'd be so nice to be able to do that. And like now you see Iron Maiden, they put on just like an amazing show too. Yeah. Maiden is a huge influence for us. So awesome. Yeah, we were just raised on that. And like me, I always loved theatrical kind of stuff. Like I like musicals and shit. So just doing that, like it rubs off.
It definitely, like, and you still have, like, don't get me wrong, if the music sucked, it wouldn't, none of this would really matter, but like, it was almost like, oh, they have this awesome presentation. Oh, this is so great. And it's like, okay, now do they have the riffs? Do they have the songs? Is there hooks? Is there something, what am I trying to say here? It's like, okay, yes, this dish looks great and it's very well presented, but is it good? And, you know, first song I turn on, I'm like, okay, oh yeah, thank God. Like it's you know, it's great. Not thank God, but like it's you know what I mean? Like sometimes I think bands that worry so much about that type of stuff, it can go the other way where then it's like, oh, like this song is the same riff for 15 minutes and that's it. Like, oh shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's,
which is very dangerous for us because we could run into that problem really, really easily with 8-minute long songs.
Sure. But I think in the hard rock world, like, listen, I'm of the studentship, so to speak, with guitar of, if you have a great riff, I want to hear that riff a billion times throughout the song, but does the average person, you know what I mean? Yeah, so it's like,
exactly,
that's kind of my point.
Yeah. We don't want to be labeled riff rock. That's for sure. Cause we aren't riff rock. Like,
no, absolutely.
ZZ Top. We like ZZ Top and we like riff rock kind of stuff like AC/DC. We're both big AC/DC fans and that has a time and its place. And for us, there's no reason why we can't bring that in as like a solid main riff and give you a good punch in the face, and then all of a sudden fade off and do our own thing, and all of a sudden that riff just comes back and you're like, oh, okay, like, I remember that riff from like 6 minutes ago and that was awesome.
Right. And you can have it can be well structured while not being like, oh, hey, this sounds just like, another. That's something I find has been happening a lot lately with radio rock, right? Is like, it's very, oh, this band sounds like this band and this band and this band. It's like, well, shit, man, what happened to like and that's again why what drew me to you guys so much was like, what happened to the bands that were really unique? And thank God for bands like yourselves, bands like Revive the Rose, the Jailbirds, One in the Chamber, Drop Top Alibi, like this resurgence in good, unique rock and roll that's happening right now. Just even looking in Ontario, like it's so cool to see happen. And you guys are kind of like, to me, like you stand out even more too, because of that, the theatrical side of things.
Thanks, dude. Yeah. We're definitely not looking for radio play with our songs. Like we do have a couple of shorter tunes that could be on the radio, but yeah, that's the whole thing with us. Like our motto is dare to be different and create cool shit. So we don't care if the masses are going to like it. We're looking for those people that do like it. And if you're going to connect with us, that's all we want.
Right on. One thing I think that I got a vibe from with you guys that kind of resonates with what you're just saying too is very much like a band like Black Label Society, where it's very like, not the average rock music fan might not be into Black Label Society, not so much like comparing you guys musically, but just kind of the vibe. But it's like they have their diehards and they love everything they do, and Zach can do whatever the hell he wants with the project. Everyone's going to support it, right? That's kind of the vibe.
They got their tribe.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Like you guys are looking for your tribe where you can be as creative as you want, because you're clearly both two super ridiculously creative dudes. So it's like knowing that that's the route you guys are going, that's awesome, because I have so much respect for artists and creative people who just, they do what they want to do and what makes them happy, because there is definitely a lack of that, I think, in the world, where when everyone's trying to get their 15 minutes of fame on TikTok or whatever, it's like, oh, well, what's everyone else doing? It's like, no, like create what you want, because it's so important to be happy with what you are putting out there.
Yeah. And that's the problem with everybody that's chasing doing what everybody else is already doing, because by the time you put out that, like what you're trying to do, what they are doing, right, it's already old and they're on to the next new thing. So the only way to stand out and become your own thing is by doing your own thing. And then it's cool if you have other people that are like, I want to do that. You don't want to be a follower in this kind of business. You want to do your own thing, because followers only get 15 minutes, if that. And
right. You look at like, like even our generations of music and like the early 2000s, right? Like there was some killer bands. Like that's some of my favorite music in the world. Don't get me wrong, that's my era. Sure. But there were so many bands that came in like the late, like 2008, 2009, that like kind of belonged in that early 2000s era, of like kind of like the post grunge hard rock stuff. And they were late to the party, because they were like, oh, we want to sound like these guys. Yeah. And they did, and they had a great sound, but no one cared anymore. It was like, oh, well, that's been over for, now it's all about this new sound. So then all these other bands were like, oh my God, Asking Alexandria is one of the biggest bands in the world. Let's all copy them. And then no one cared, because in 5 years that was over too. Like, not that they're still a big band and everything, but it's like, if you focus on what everyone else is doing, same thing happened with the grunge era, right? Like all these bands were like, oh my God, we need to sound like Alice in Chains and Soundgarden
and Pearl Jam and Nirvana.
And then, next thing you know, we have all these clone bands at the end of the 90s, and everyone's kind of like, hey, we're kind of over this. Like, and they just never really made it. They maybe had one song,
Yeah,
and maybe they
exactly.
have a great discography, but they're not known for that, right?
Yeah, exactly. The only way you're going to make a name for yourself is by carving your own path.
Absolutely. It's super important to, you know, carve your own path. And something I talk about a lot on the show, especially over the last couple of years, is very much like do the things that you want to do, carve your own path. If there's something you want to go for, like just go for it. Because if there's anything this C word era has taught us, it's that you never know what's going to happen. Right. So it's cool to hear that that's kind of the overall mindset that you guys had going into this. I know that
choice.
right.
Because everything kept on changing for us all the time. We went into the studio thinking we were going to record a EP, and then 2 days in, restrictions hit, and we were like, "Well, we got to pack up our stuff and get out of there," because we didn't know, like, can we be in here recording? Like, if we get caught, are we going to get charged? Like, what's going on? Like, so that changed the whole dynamic, because we figured, you know what, we got 2 songs done. Like, instead, let's just come back and let's just do a whole album, and we'll just like plow right through it. Like, restrictions or no, we'll just do it. So it's caused us to adapt every single time. And like this year, we've already had to adapt our plans. We were thinking, all right, let's start thinking about live. And then more and more restrictions started happening. Things closed up again. We're like, maybe we're not in any rush for this live thing, because we have to put together a whole band. And is it worth our financial situation to like hire this band to come and do rehearsals and then get ready for these shows, and then all of a sudden the shows don't happen, and we just wasted all this money getting a band up to speed? So to then not have any shows to play. Like, there's been so much that has happened in the last couple of years with the music industry. Like, you know, bands who have had to adapt in a way, like it has sucked to see, because there are some bands that kind of unfortunately not got left behind, but like just, you know, they were live bands. Like, that was their thing. And they had just dropped a record, or they had just dropped an EP, and they were getting ready to, there's bands I know that were getting ready to tour for the first time, like in the States and stuff. And just shut down, you know, and I think the live stream show thing has been a really cool vehicle for a lot of bands. But if you're a band that relies so much on the crowd, like, it's tricky for that too. I can only imagine how it feels to play music to no one. Like, and believe me, all of us musicians have done it. There's plenty of gigs where we're playing to the bar staff and the girlfriends and the other bands, right?
I guess like, at least they're there. Like, if you're playing to just a camera, like I couldn't fathom how that would feel.
Yeah, it's weird. I've done a couple of them, and like, it just is not the same, and it's not sustainable. It's not nobody really likes doing it anymore. Like, people, you never see them anymore, right? Because people just stop caring. They're like, oh, okay, this is fun for the first couple months, and now they're like, I'm not going to pay $20 to watch the TV screen and it to be okay, right? Because like the band's just standing there, and there's like, it's not the same. Like, you just can't replicate that live experience without it being live.
Right. I think Jamie Joseph from Hatebreed said it best. Thank God that you can't download Loud Amps in the Face. Like, you can't, there is nothing like, I am a huge fan of, you know, like watching live DVDs. I mean, I forgot to, I was just watching one earlier this morning. Like, I do love, listen to me, DVDs. Some people listening probably don't know what DVDs are, but
you watching those on beta, bud?
Yeah, bud.
Beta.
Yo, man, I have a mint condition Neil Young unplugged VCR cassette tape sitting in my living room right now.
VH what?
V8, exactly. The hell's that?
I say that to people all the time. I worked at Blockbuster for a long time, right?
Yo.
So I was there when the phase out happened from VHS to DVD, then DVD to Blu-ray. And all these old people would come in all the time, like, "Oh yeah, do you have any VHS?" I'd be like, "VH what?" And like just act like I had no clue what they're talking about. I was such a dick. And finally I'd crack and be like, "Oh no, I know what you're talking about. I'm just screwing with you." But like, yeah. Then eventually I'd be like, "Oh, are you talking about beta?"
Well, beta? What is this? Like,
Yeah.
It's like, no, they're the video cassette. It's like, I know.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, I just screwed with them so much. I was
Yeah.
just punk kid being a dickhead.
That's awesome. I could probably do a whole podcast on you just asking about your time at Blockbuster. But
Oh, it was great. It was great. I was there for 10 years and it was
really, wow. So yeah, you were there right up to the end?
Oh yeah, I was there until it shut down. Yeah, I robbed that place blind.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I know a few cats who.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Oh yeah, like we got our fair share of stuff. It was good.
Brother, I walked into a Blockbuster like 2 weeks before they closed, and the dude behind the counter just didn't care anymore.
Yeah, so here.
Why would he? I was like, yeah, I just bought my PlayStation 3, and I was like, wanting to get this game, and he was like,
yeah.
I was like, what is this? He's like, just take it. I was like,
yeah,
but it's like $50. He's like, just take it. And I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure I'm stealing right now, but all right.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We didn't give a shit. They gave us a shitty severance package.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how long you've been here, everybody gets $3,000. And that was it. It's like, well, we've been here for like 10 years, and this other guy who's been here for like a month and he's getting $3,000 too. Like, this is not fair. So everybody just took what they thought was fair.
All right, we need to have you back on and get drunk and ask about Blockbuster stories one time.
Yeah, I can talk all about Blockbuster for sure. It was a great job, man. And then I worked at EB Games for a while too. So
holy shit. Okay. Yeah, no, we're gonna have to have you back on sometime for that to talk about that.
Yeah. And we could do another one about how I worked at a haunted house for 10 years.
Yo.
Yeah,
What?
man, I do cool shit.
I was gonna say you've led an interesting life, my friend. On top of being a badass drummer and vocalist, it's like, oh shit.
Yeah, man, it was great. Best haunted house around, Phantom Farm.
Really?
Yeah, man, it's by Port Hope here in like I'm right in Coburg right now, but yeah, it's in Port Hope.
Why did I think you lived like way outside of? Because like, yeah, I grew up in Newcastle.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. Oh, I know Phantom Farm. I probably saw you there at one point.
Oh yeah, probably. Yeah, I worked there for like 8 years.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
I loved it.
That's freaking hilarious.
Mitch and I are originally from Coburg, but our band is based out of Ottawa because Mitch lives in Ottawa now.
Right.
And it's just easier. We wanted to be in Ottawa instead of Toronto because, I don't know, we feel like maybe it'll be a little bit easier.
Every other band and their grandma's from Toronto, so it's...
Yeah. And Mitch lives in Ottawa, so he's like building up like rapport with people there. He's met a few bands now, and he's a bartender, so he's kind of like building a name for ourselves there. So it's just easier to be kind of based out of there. I'm kind of an in-betweener, so because I live in just past Brighton. Okay. Yeah.
That's
so
nice.
I'm like, yeah.
Crazy small world, man. There's people who know Kaylin, and then there's like the other side of like people who at one point were in the Port Hope area. It's like, you know, if you were even remotely from that area, like I'm like, there's probably I probably know. Okay, so if you guys were in Coburg, this is completely off topic to anyone listening, but I got to ask now. This is what the Harder Show is, folks. I have to ask now. So what years did you live in Coburg up until, if you don't mind me asking?
I basically lived in Coburg almost all my life. Mitch too, but he lived in Ottawa for a little while. Then he moved to St. Catharines, and I moved to St. Catharines there with him for a bit, but not for very long. That was like 7 years ago. But yeah, for the most part of our lives, we lived in Coburg.
Okay.
All throughout our teenage years up until like our late 20s.
Okay, so being a musician from Coburg, I have to ask this. Was there a music store in Coburg you'd usually go to?
Yeah, George's.
George's, right on. Okay.
Yeah, George's.
That's the timestamp I needed to know. Love George's. There was another music store in Coburg called Gigs Music. You ever heard of it?
Yep.
Okay.
I remember Gigs.
So I worked at Gigs Music when it moved to Bowmanville, and I ran that store eventually for a while.
Oh, that's cool.
So again,
it's so funny.
Yeah.
I always run into somebody who has some kind of connection to Coburg. I can be on vacation in Mexico or something, and it's like, I have people that live in Coburg, and like, like one time I was in Aruba, and this guy was just like, "You're from Coburg? I'm moving there next week." He's like, "What the?"
Let's be friends. Like,
yeah, like it's ridiculous.
That's crazy. The second you said Coburg, I was like, okay, either you were George's guitars guy, or you were there for Gigs Music. But like the people who were George's guitars people, like they were very loyal to George, and I get why, because he's.
Well, I knew George really well, and I was in a band with his son Randy for a while.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, we did a couple bands. Like Randy Lee, amazing drummer, man. I don't know if you ever knew that, but like,
yes, I got the pleasure of meeting them very, very briefly a couple of times and seeing him play, and it's
oh, no. He's like ridiculous. Yeah. And like, so obviously I took a sidestep. He was playing drums, I was playing keyboards and stuff, but yeah.
Nice. So I had to ask that, but
you
played drums. Now I learned you played a little bit of keyboards. I know you do some singing. So what started all that for you? Like what was kind of the catalyst to get you to start playing music, and what instrument did you start with?
So I've been playing music ever since I was 4 years old. My mom put me into piano. Nice. So I started with piano, and then from there, I've always wanted to play drums because my dad was a drummer. And ever since then, he finally, when I turned I don't know, I was probably like 12 or so. He finally busted out the drum kit. And ever since then, I was just hooked on drums. So, but I was in an orchestra for years, youth orchestra. I even played with the Toronto Philharmonia a few times. I went to school for a year for music, and then I decided, no, I don't want to do classical stuff. I just want to rock and roll, man. So, but ever since then, ever since my dad busted out those drums, I knew I wanted to kind of play drums for the rest of my life. And ever since I played that first gig, then I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, is play drums for people.
Nice, man. But that's cool though that you have that background, because you've obviously got some serious, judging from your drumming on the music I've heard, obviously you have some chops, but I find that, I don't know if it's because I am so uneducated when it comes to theory and things of that nature, but when I hear someone playing who has that knowledge, I don't know how I know this, but I can usually pick the players out, even drummers, because to me, there's subtle differences in a drummer who really truly understands, like, yes, obviously you gotta fit the song and everything, but understands the theory behind percussion and drumming. Like, to me, there's these little differences, and your playing is it's very orchestral and very cinematic. So that's cool to hear. I was curious about that.
Thanks, man. Yeah, and that's what I went to school for percussion. So I had my grade 8 in the Royal Conservatory of Music. And I also had my grade 6 for that in piano, and my grade 2 in theory. So, and I had to have all that for university. So, and a lot of that's out the window now after 15 years of drinking and smoking pot and stuff like that. A lot of that theory has kind of gone out the window, but now I just hit shit and I have to count to
drums
4.
Go bang, bang.
As long as I can count to 4 and sometimes 6, I'm okay.
Maybe 6.
Yeah, there's only a couple weird songs where I got to count to 6.
I just had a conversation with someone the other day, and they were saying, I wish I could play guitar. And I was like, can your fingers do this? Yeah. You're in. Can you count to 4? Yeah. Well, you can play drums, brother. That's
exactly. It just depends on how much you want to put into it. If you're going to sit there, all you have to do is practice 15 minutes a day, and you'll see an improvement. Mm-hmm. It's hard. The thing with guitar is people quit because it starts hurting their fingers. Mm-hmm. But once you push through that, you're good.
See, my thing with, because I wanted to be a drummer when I was much younger, and my parents said, "Fuck no," to the drum set, but
like most parents,
yes, like most parents, it was like,
we're getting you a recorder instead,
which is such a better alternative. What would you rather hear, bang bang or? Come on, let's be serious. Sorry, Marty. But
what the fuck was that?
Yeah, sorry guys, my cat's right here, just hanging out. But what's so funny to me? I say this to my drumming buddies all the time. Like, you put a couple of sticks on my hand and put me in front of a drum set, and I can kind of sort of figure this part out. I could hit stuff, and I'm like, okay, like 1, 2, 3. Okay, yeah, I got it a little bit. And then you start incorporating the foot shit, and I'm like, I'm out. I don't can't do it.
Yeah. Some people just have it, and other people, it takes a little while longer for them to learn it, but you can learn it. You just got to be determined.
Mm-hmm. You got to want it.
Yeah, exactly.
I was
Some
like,
people, it's just a little harder than others.
Right. I was like, why would I do that when I can just go gung, 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 gung on a guitar? Come on. That's what I want.
Well, if you're playing like some like metalcore stuff, all you need to know is drop like D, open D.
Yeah, that's it.
Just no rhythms. Counting to 4 while you do these weird rhythms, you're good.
That's it. That's all you need. Can you count to 4? You're good.
Yeah. You need to know open string and you need to know suspended chord. Just one.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it, brother. But so talking about, when you like really started getting serious with playing music, and like you said, you were kind of always serious with it, but aside from, like you had mentioned your father, was there any other players that you witnessed that really like, wow, I want to do what that person's doing? Was there any players that really influenced you in those early days?
That is a good question. Like I really like, once I started diving into it with the bands, that's when I really started diving into more like rock bands and stuff. Because before that, I was kind of all over the place. I didn't really know what genre I liked. So one week I'd be listening to rap, and next week I'd be listening to ska, then I'd be listening to like death metal. Like I'd be all over the place, just kind of finding what I liked. Turns out I like it all. So I still listen to everything and jump all over the place. But I remember like once I started getting into watching the big like stadium rock bands, all their DVDs, and seeing live performances of them, is watching like obviously Neil Peart play and watching Bonham play and all the old great guys, Keith Moon and Ginger Baker and all that kind of stuff. Like I even like really like Paul Rudd, Phil Rudd of AC/DC, and Paul Rudd.
Paul Rudd's cool too, but yeah.
I like his acting as well. I don't know about his drumming. I've never seen him play drum.
He's actually a pretty decent drummer, but anyway.
Oh yeah. But I like Phil Rudd too, because like he's not flashy like all the other guys I listed off, especially Paul. Like, but Phil, he just like is the core of AC/DC. Yes. He just keeps the beat. And he's just like, whatever, you guys do your thing and run around stage. I'm just going to smoke this cigarette and keep you guys in time. And he just has the cigarette hanging out his mouth. And yeah. And it's just, I don't like to be flashy like Neil Peart, but I just like to be the heart.
Right. And that's like, I have such respect for drummers and bassists who really, and rhythm guitar players too. Like as a rhythm guy, like, I have so much respect for players who just, let's keep everything going. Like the drummer is the person who's supposed to keep everything going. So if you're serving the song, you're keeping time, you just a steady rock moving forward kind of tempo. And you're not worrying about, throwing out a bunch of flashy stuff to be like, look how good I am. Don't get me wrong. I am as just impressed with drummers who can do that and make it tasteful, of course. But I have so much respect for drummers who do that, who just, like he was saying, like him, who he just kind of keeps everything moving forward. And I'll let you guys run around and be idiots.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not allowed to run around anyway. Stuck there.
Well, you can do the old Shannon Larkin and just fucking start throwing your hands around and
yeah. Oh yeah. I've been compared to Animal a few times. Once I start rocking out, they're all over the place. I got long arms too, so.
So you keep her going, and you keep the Muppet vibe alive, brother. That's what was the name of the Muppets band? Shit.
Oh, I can't remember. I
gotta look it up. It was Electric Tooth. I gotta look it up. Yeah, oh like God, this is gonna bug me. But anyway, like it's funny. Like there are a lot of drummers I know who like we'll have this conversation where I'm like, drummers can have like some of my favorite drummers, like Shannon Larkin, Morgan Rose, like there's my two favorites just off the top of my head, but like they very much like they're great players, but they also are just like during the show, they're doing so much cool stuff. And it's almost like you can't take your eyes off of them, but in a good way. Like, it's not like they're, don't get me wrong, they're like that one drummer. You remember that YouTube video that went around, God, this is like 10 years ago.
Yeah,
the drummer's at the wrong, yes.
gig.
Like that, I'm like, okay, dude, come on. Like, I get that was their gimmick. But like, it's like, come on, man.
Stealing the show.
Yeah, like, I get that.
Every song. Yeah. Every song, there's a time and place for it, But he was definitely like stealing the show every single gig.
Yeah. And there was another one too of it was like some like children's show, and the drummer was like in like a big felt costume, and he was playing blast beats and shit on top of this children's music.
Yeah, he's like a giant porpoise or something like that. Big red thing just giving her.
Like, what the hell was going on?
Yeah. But have you heard of the band Guar?
Guar?
Or not Guar. Yeah, well, they're like Guar, but they're a band from Europe called Lordi.
Yes.
And they are actually considered like a children's rock band. And like they're pop rock in like Finland and stuff where they're from. So
over here they're like
over here they're shock rock. Like Guar. But and
Finland's like, hard.
Over there they're considered like a kids rock, like pop rock band.
By the way, folks, that was Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Banned from the Muppets, folks. It's some good shit. But that's awesome, though.
I remembered it had electric something.
Yes. I know it had teeth and electric, and I was like, is it electric teeth? What the hell is it? That's a throwback, son.
Showing our age again.
Yeah. Yeah. But so
VHS is a Muppet Show.
VHS and Muppet. Well, Muppet Show is even technically before our time, even. Like that's,
Yeah. That shit was on beta.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely it was. But so, you're playing drums and you've done your time, kind of with the orchestral stuff and things of that nature. So you had mentioned that you and Mitch had played in bands before, and that when did you start like kind of playing in bands, and what was kind of some of the music that you were playing at the time?
I started off playing like in bands in high school, and Mitch was doing bands in high school too. We didn't start hooking up until our early 20s musically. But I was always playing like metal. Like we were in high school playing metal bands, and like we were changing our name every single week, and it was all over the place, right? Because we were just a bunch of punk kids. But we started really taking it seriously when Mitch and I got together and started doing Creekwater Junkies. So we did a lot of stuff. We played for a bunch of bands. Like we opened for Helix. We opened for Crash Karma. It had Edwin in it and stuff. We opened for an old classic rock band called Blackfoot. We recorded a couple albums. It's like next to impossible to find nowadays, because back then all it was MySpace, right?
Right.
We had a MySpace page, and like Facebook just started like showing up. So like Creekwater Junkies online is like really hard to find. If you're interested, I think I have a couple CDs. If you give me your address, I'll send them to you.
Please do. Well, no, we'll just meet up and I'll get them from you. I live in Peterborough, so I'm not that far.
Oh, yeah, shit. Okay, yeah. If you're just in Peterborough, I can do that for sure. So I'll find a couple of CDs for you. But after Creekwater Junkies disbanded, I kind of did a couple other things where just for a couple other bands with some buddies. Like I was singing in a band for like a very, very, very brief moment. Then after that, I moved to St. Catharines, and Mitch and I were going to start something, and just things didn't quite work out there. He started going back to school a little more. And then I just joined a band called the Castor Troys. And I was with them for about 5-6 years, and they were based out of Hamilton. And we did a few things with the Troys. We played at Burlington Sound of Music. I think it was 2019. So we played with Bush, Live, Headstones, Monster Truck.
Nice.
Yeah, we got to play
That's some serious
twice.
firepower on that bill.
Yeah, it was good. Crownlands was also on that show too. Ride the Rose was playing at that festival.
Hell yeah.
As well. So yeah, we did a few things. Been around the block. And then
that's some serious firepower on that fucking lineup. Holy shit.
Yeah, it was a fun show. That was a good one. But yeah, after Troy's broke up, then Mitch got a hold of me. It was just kind of convenient timing, and now we're back where we're at. And now I've also got my other band too that I'm in Avon.
Yes, you got it. You were telling me about that before we started. So what's this other band that you're in? Because I got to ask, and we'll have to have you or someone from the band back on another time to chat about it. But what is this other band that you're in? Because it was fascinating to me.
Yeah, it's hard not to talk about this one. So the band's called Avon, and we are a bird punk band. That's right, bird punk. We sing all about birds and the human experiences through the perspective of birds. But like you said, that is a whole other podcast because we could talk about that for hours.
That's like just like a little tidbit that you'll get about. Yeah, we're gonna have to talk about that another time for sure. Because that's so cool. Like it's such an interesting, unique concept.
It is.
Two very unique bands, man.
That's what I like about it. Like it's we were reading part of that research I was talking about when we were starting Stone Cold Crows. We were finding that a lot of podcasts and books were saying, find your niche, and if you can, micro niche, because that's going to be able to find your tribe a lot faster, and then they're going to spread the word, and then your tribe's going to grow. So you want to find those people that like this really weirdly specific thing, like birds. Or movies in our Stone Cold Crows case. And then from there, it just kind of grows. It's a lot easier to find 1,000 people that are into movies than trying to appeal to millions of people that are into music.
Absolutely. Well, and speaking on movies, and kind of you've mentioned that a few times with the themes of the band. So I'm assuming you guys are big movie buffs.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I worked at Blockbuster, so I kind of so I watched my fair share of movies, that's for sure. And Mitch loves classic cinema, and he likes a lot of like the newer stuff. Like he's huge into war movies and things like that. So yeah, we're definitely into movies, and it's a lot of the soundtracks too. Like Mitch, especially, he'll sit there and he'll just listen to soundtracks on Spotify and listen to composers.
Nice. That's badass. Yeah. Like, and there's a lot of killer music out there that comes from movies and TV shows. Like, I mean, I think one of the biggest songs from a TV show that I think remember in recent years that like I heard it everywhere was from The Witcher.
Yeah.
Toss a coin to your Witcher. I heard that. I heard 30 different versions of that damn song popping up.
We were
everywhere.
thinking about doing one actually.
Really? See, that's cool though. Like it's, I mean, they Netflix shit the bed with that song. That song should have been worldwide released. Like, they shit the bed bad with that one. They definitely won't do that again. But speaking on music with you guys, so you form up, you have this idea for this cool band, and you have the imagery and all that stuff. You run into a bit of a snafu, so to speak, and a bit of a setback with, the C word. We don't say the word here on the show. But then, like you were saying, it's almost kind of like a blessing in disguise. You go and you record this badass record, Original Sin Part 1. Walk me through a little bit of Original Sin Part 1 and kind of the recording process of your guys' first record.
Yeah, so it was an interesting experience. Mitch and I I've never done anything like this. Literally, Mitch sent me skeletons, and that was it. So I just listened to the skeletons a bunch, and then before we went into the studio, Mitch and I had never performed the songs together at all. So we just walked into the studio, and we kind of started listening to the song. We started banging through it, and through that, we just go song by song. We just work on one track at a time. Like a lot of times people will go and be like, all right, we're going to bang through all the drums. Now we're going to bang through all the bass. No, we just do one song at a time. And that allows us to focus on that song and put everything that we have into that one.
Right.
And so we'll start with the typical way, drums, bass, guitars, and then we'll add in all the orchestration. And then the vocals. And then after it's all done and we're happy with it, we'll move on to the next track. And we kind of had to do that because of the C word, because we didn't know if we were going to get the boot out of the studio from the lovely government. So,
right.
Yeah, so we just kind of started doing it track by track. That way, at least if we do get the boot, we'll have at least something that we can release, and we're not just sitting on half an album incomplete. So you got to adapt, right? And especially in this business, you adapt or you drown.
Right. And there's so many bands that even like, you know, big label bands that, you know, you hear it all the time. We're like, oh, you know, we were sitting on this record for months because it was not fully complete, or, you know, there's some bands I know locally that, like, you know, they've been sitting on material now for a while, and it's like, damn, like that sucks to have, because by the time you drop this material, like, it's, you're kind of like, oh yeah, this is our old record, but it just came out, like, you know. So it's cool though that you guys did it that way, because then if you did, like you were saying, if you did get shut down, you wouldn't be like, oh yeah, here's half of the beast I am. Like, here's like 30% of it, you know, like we got the drums done and like some of the guitars, you know, there's some tambourine in there. Good. Yeah. It's pretty good. You know, it doesn't have that big vocal hook, but you know, whatever.
Yeah. It'll get you through.
Yeah. It's a tide over. You know, I went ahead and hummed the vocal line on my phone for you guys, so don't worry about it.
Yeah. Lyrics will come in like a week or so. Don't worry.
Oh, shout outs to the MySpace days of uploading an instrumental song with just lyrics.
Yeah.
Or just lyrics.
Yeah. You make up the song as you listen.
You laugh, but I knew a guy.
Yeah.
I don't actually believe in the concept of creating music, so I
oh God.
I knew a dude, man.
Oh man.
I like the audience to decide what I'm doing. But you say you're a band. Yes, but like they decide. Decide what? Exactly.
There actually is a really cool band that is kind of like that. They're in Toronto and they're called Rambunctious. And I literally like was finishing a gig one time and walking to our car down Queen Street. And all of a sudden we hear this like old, like New Orleans style band. There's tons of horns and drums is rocking. And this guy just screaming into a microphone. We're like, what the fuck is this? So we finally stumbled across this bar, and there's a bar on each side of the venue. And this band is standing on each side of the bar, all lined up down it with horns, and there's a drum kit on the bar, and they're just playing and going crazy. And I soon find out that all of it is improvised on the spot. All they do is they get an audience member to yell out a name. So an audience member names a song, they come up with a name on the spot, and then the singer makes lyrics, and the rest of the band makes the song all on the spot.
That's freaking awesome.
Yeah. So I yelled out Senor Burns, and they actually made a song that kind of sounded like it. So I think there's a couple guys who are like, yeah, this guy.
This guy knows what's up.
This guy knows what's up. Well, we could do this. It was great.
That's badass.
They're such a cool band to see. I've seen them twice now. And if you ever get a chance to go see them, they're so much fun.
Nice. Shouts to what was the name of the band again?
Rambunctious. And they have they have another side one that's Little Rambunctious. So it's when they just have like their like small little core group. But yeah, there's probably like 13, 14 of them.
Oh wow.
Just like standing on the two bars and just playing to each other across. And like it was so loud. They were just blasting. And it was awesome. Everybody's up and dancing when we were allowed to. Yeah.
Remember those days?
Yeah.
That's badass though. You know a band who actually used to do that, like just a rock band that used to do that, and they wrote one of their biggest hits ever doing it that way?
Oh, cool.
Creed.
Yeah.
Creed wrote Higher one night doing that. They were like, oh, you guys want to hear an improvised song? And they started playing the music, and he started singing, and what should we name this song? That was it.
Oh, wow.
I don't know why that just popped in my head, but
yeah, it's like American Woman, basically the same thing.
Yeah,
because he was like late for a gig, and they're like sitting there on stage waiting for him. They're like, fuck is he? And they started busting into this riff. And all of a sudden he comes running out and he's like, what am I going to sing about? And he looked into the crowd and he saw all these American women and he was like, yep, there we go.
Yep. American woman. Like,
yeah. Apparently that's the story behind it.
That's actually hilarious. I never knew that. That's badass.
Yeah.
I'm going to steal that story real quick.
Yeah, go for it. It's probably fake.
You know, just like that Phil Collins song that's about the guy that saved the other guy from drowning, even though he could have, and then he didn't. Yeah. Oh, Jesus. I love fake music history.
Yeah.
It makes me happier.
It's like, where did somebody even come up with this?
Oh, brother. That's it. But that's badass, though. Like, and it's cool because looking at the record, like, you know, you guys have... Like, you have the songs that, like you said, like they definitely could be radio songs, but then you have these, you know, these big epic, you know, for lack of a better word, cinematic type of songs. And even the record as a whole, like, starts off, it's very concept-y is kind of the vibe I get from it.
It was a concept album that wasn't intentional at first. It just kind of turned out to be a concept album. We noticed a lot of the songs that we chose off of our demos had a kind of the same theme.
Right.
So that's why we ended up going, okay, well, maybe we'll go with this original Sin theme. And then when we started looking at more of our songs, we're like, all right, we have a lot of these songs that kind of meet this. So hence why we turned it into a trilogy. So we already have part 2 and 3 written in skeleton form. But we just need the money to go in and actually do it proper. So it's there.
Right. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, we got tons of ideas, man. We got so many cool ideas in the books. And like, I don't even know what I'm allowed to touch on. But yeah, there's a bunch of cool stuff. Like we're talking about books and we're talking about different video kind of things that are a little bit different. Like we have a whole screenplay written up for a music video, and it's like in depth. Like Mitch learned how to write a script, and it literally has like camera angles and the lighting and like in depth. Like it's like for a music video, it's like 30 pages long, and like it's wild.
No lack of creativity for sure. That's badass. Yeah. And listen, folks listening to this podcast right now, we got to make this happen. Go on stonecoldcrows.com right now. Buy the record, Original Sin Part 1. It's badass. I promise you guys will enjoy it. Because I wouldn't lie to y'all. If you like good, solid, dirty riffs, they got that for you. But if you also like very well put together songs and vocals that have some hardness but are clean, for a lot of it. I think that's one thing again that does really set you guys apart, where, you know, a lot of bands like who do kind of the hard rock stuff, it's very clean and it's very like people who listen to stuff like Alice Cooper and classic rock stuff would appreciate the vocal style that you guys have.
Yeah. Whereas a lot of people tend to, if they start doing anything heavy, they all of a sudden start sliding into a Phil Anselmo kind of vocals.
Right. Yes.
It's like, you don't, just because you're heavy doesn't mean you have to like grit it up and like be this aggressive singer. You don't have to be.
Mm-hmm. You can still,
a lot of our inspirations vocally are like power metal-y singers and like this really, really clean singers like Jordan Land. He's like one of our favorite singers. And he sings really clean, but he can rough it up when he needs to. Mm-hmm. And like in Nightwish, the original singer Tarja, she's all like operatic. She had an opera background, but then they switched to somebody, Annette, I think was the next band member's name, and she had more of like a rock and roll style. And then now the next one is like a mixture of both. Mm-hmm. So, and they're like heavy with full of orchestra, but they don't need to have the screaming and stuff, but they do when they need it.
Exactly. You don't necessarily miss it. And that's what I think a lot of people who only listen to and don't get me wrong, I love, harsh vocals as much as the next guy. Like some of my favorite vocalists of all times don't never sing super clean. Like they always have that grit, right? But
yeah, like Randy. I love Randy from Randy Blythe from Lamb of God. Like one of the best vocalists out.
The best. But even coming from a rock world, like, you know, like I'm a huge fan of Sully from Godsmack. I'm a huge fan of Ryan McCombs from Soil and Drowning Pool. Like guys who just, they constant grit almost all the time. But I have such a love for just good, clean singing that still has an edge to it. That's what like it sounds like this guy's been sitting behind the bar, you know, he's had a few beers, maybe smoked a cigarette or two, and now he's singing to me. That's the kind of clean voice I really love, and that's what you guys bring to the table for sure.
Thanks, I love the guys that can just like turn it on, like Chris Stapleton, and like they can just like sing clean, and all of a sudden it's just like boom, he just turns it on, and he's gritty and hard and rough. And then just like that, again, he's back to being like nice and soft and pretty. And yeah, I love those kind of guys that have that kind of control.
And even like the guys who can take it that step further, they have the nice, pretty cleans. They can do the rock stuff, but then also they can scream. Like I'm always I'm in awe of guys like, you know, one of my favorite vocalists and bands that everybody and their grandma hates. And I'm like, I'm like, I listen to it. I'm like, how can you hate this man? Like, how can you not at least kind of appreciate what he's doing? And that's my boy Ivan from Five Finger Death Punch. Like, oh yeah, I'm like, if you don't like Five Finger Death Punch, okay, I can get it. But I'm like, are you not paying attention to what this guy's doing? And then you see him live, and it's like, oh, he's actually that good all the time. Like, what the fuck? Like,
cool.
What?
Yeah, I never got into them too much, but I can appreciate a good singer when there is a good singer.
Right.
And for me, like, I'm a big, like, I'm not a big fan of them. And then I see them live and I'm like, oh, okay, I can see why people like them. Like, I need to see a band live before I completely dismiss them.
Yeah. And there's even some bands that, like, you know, I saw live and I'm like, okay, now I love them even more, because it's like, wow, like, you know, how can I? It's like the Jailbirds are a great example. I haven't seen them live, but I thought, yo, like this Mike guy is super talented. Like they're, you know, the great band, killer tracks. And then I saw an acoustic live video of them that shouts to Kaylin recorded, and I watched that fucking dude play "Dull My Brain" on an acoustic guitar, which in itself is impressive, and hit every single note like perfectly. And I'm just like, I hate you.
Oh yeah, they're good.
You
I've
son of a
couple shows with them, and they're great.
Yeah.
I think the first time I saw them was at Canadian Music Week. They played a couple bands after Castor Troy's played, and everybody was like, no, you guys got to stick around and like listen to the Jailbirds. You got to listen to the Jailbirds. And then we obviously stuck around, and we were like, fuck yeah.
Some serious
another band I just checked out recently that kind of reminds me of them. Christian was talking about them on the show, so that's why I checked them out. The Sticks and Stones band.
Yes.
Yeah. Did you check out that BYO or not the System of a Down cover?
Chewy cover.
Yeah, it was pretty decent. Yeah. After that, I went and checked out their EP. Like, it's pretty dope. They got some good shit.
That's some talented kids, man. I say kids.
Yeah, and like they got some really good music videos too. I checked them out, and they kick ass. Then I wouldn't have heard about them unless it was from this show. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. That was all Christian. I had nothing to do with it, but big shout to them. I'm going to have Nick from Sticks and Stones on the show at some point. So looking forward to that. But man, brother, that cover of Chop Suey, like I knew it was going to be good. And Andy is a fucking beast of a vocalist.
Yeah, man.
But I was like,
I didn't know he could scream.
Same. I was like, he's a rock singer, and he's a damn good rock singer. But I'm like, is he like? I had faith, but I was like, is he going to be able to fully do some of the parts? And then he does it, and I'm like, I quit. Like what? That blew me away. That cover, man. Like just, oh my god. They had another. On the podcast I was talking about, because I looked it up, they did a cover of one of my favorite metal bands, Gojira. They did a cover of one of their songs that is like a super, Like they're a hard band to cover.
Oh yeah,
because they're French, right? So they're vocalists.
I'm trying to picture them covering Gojira.
Dude,
very different stuff.
And he cleaned up the vocals.
Oh,
like
okay.
It wasn't. It was like very. He had that, but it was kind of cleaner than I would have thought. And I was like, you know what? This is awesome. They won me over big time with that one because
I'll have to go check that out.
Yeah, any band that covers Gojira, like that's risky territory. It's like bands covering Alice in Chains, like that's risky territory.
Good,
yeah, you got to do it and do it good, and they kicked ass. Yeah, no, huge shout outs to them. There's so much talent in this scene, and there's so much talent within Ontario, and I mean, obviously, you guys included. Like, I'm so hyped to almost complete this trifecta, so to speak, of these badass rock bands that are in Ontario right now and kicking ass. And I mean, I can't wait for the day, hopefully very soon, when all these bands, yourselves included, can just start playing these kick-ass rock shows. And I know that you've mentioned a little bit about kind of maybe some plans you guys are having. Is there anything in particular you're really looking forward to doing with this band live? Like, is there one thing in particular you're really excited to jump into live shows?
Definitely. There's so many ideas. We have we want to put on like a good light show, and like we want to pull out all the works, because if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing.
Yes. So
we're going to go all out, and we're not going to half-ass anything. And ideally, we would like to have a bunch of live horn players and like actual people up there performing with us, but we'll see what the budget holds for that. That's a little more expensive than just hiring, the typical bass guitars, and like that's about it. But yeah, if we have enough money, then we're definitely going to be busting out some like real horns, real strings, all in.
Nice, man. That's badass. That's like big energy, right? Like when you have the full live, even if it's just a couple horns and a couple strings, like that instantly is next level to me when you have that kind of commitment. Because a lot of bands they're okay with the tape, so to speak,
Yeah. Yeah. And like I've used backing tracks before with other bands, and it does do an okay job, and it will do Stone Cold Crows justice. But ideally, eventually we're going to have like a full real band up there, and it's going to be one hell of a show.
Like, how cool would it be? That'd be badass.
Yeah. That's the goal. That is the ultimate goal, is to be able to have the full band. So we'll get there. We'll get there.
Badass, man. Well, as we get ready to wrap it up here today, of course, the one thing I wanted to definitely make sure we touched on is, as you guys are hearing this week, you guys actually just dropped a brand new single on March 4th, which is let's just say it's a badass song.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah,
I don't want to say much else. I don't want to give anything away because I want you guys to go check it out. But Perdition at Sea is the name of the track, and it's badass. Walk me through a little bit about the song. Give everyone a little preview on what they can expect from Perdition at Sea.
So Perdition at Sea, we believe that we have raised the bar for ourselves on this one. It is a banger. We've kind of really honed in our craft when it comes to the orchestral parts. We're really starting to kind of figure out what we're doing there. So we think that this song has definitely raised the bar, and it's just going to make sure that all of our new future songs, we push even higher. It's a pretty straightforward song. Once you kind of like start hearing the lyrics, you're going to know what it's about. Mitch is a big into classic literature, as you probably noticed from some of the other songs on the first album, The Original Sin Part 1. So yeah, if you kind of have any idea about classic literature, you'll definitely know what it's all about. It's pretty obvious, especially once you see the artwork for it.
Yeah. Call me Ishmael.
There you go. A little hint there.
That's it. That's all you get. That's all you get. Go on the website and check it out, folks, because it is a badass tune. And if you support Stone Cold Crows, they can keep releasing badass music and maybe making badass videos and things of that nature. And you guys are doing something a little different with Perdition at Sea. You're just having it available on the website.
Yeah, it's only exclusively going to be available on our website, stonecoldcrows.com. And the only way you can get it is by purchasing any merch, or you can purchase a song standalone. I believe it's going to be at $3.99. We're still figuring all that out at the time of recording this. But yeah, if you buy any kind of merchandise, TV or a t-shirt, hoodie, a flag, even a coffee mug, or just pay for the song standalone, you're going to get the song with it.
And it is a badass, like 6.5 minute long journey.
It is a 6.5 minute.
Like, I don't want to give anything away, but let me just say, okay, it's got everything you need in a badass cinematic rock and roll tune. It's got everything you need. You got riffs, you got badass vocals, you got badass percussion and drum work and all that. You got some badass horns. It's all there. Go check it out. StoneColdCrows.com. Go check it out right now.
Yeah, man. And everything else.
Disappointed.
Everything else is available on Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, Apple. Doesn't matter what streaming service you use. Everything else that we've put out so far is available. But Perdition at Sea, available March 4th, only available on stonecoldcrows.com.
Hell yeah, brother. Well, dude, it has been an absolute pleasure getting to chat with you. Kind of a staple thing I always do here to end off the episode. It's something I always like to ask people to put a bow on a conversation. Given your extensive history too, playing music, do you have, or regale me, so to speak, with your favorite show story and your worst show story, or are they the same story?
How much time do you have, man?
It's another podcast.
Yeah, because like I could tell you times where Creekwater was playing for bikers. We did one show that was the founder. I don't know if I can even get in trouble for saying this, but it was the founder of Satan's Choice's wedding, and he was also being patched over into Hell's Angels.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Bikers really liked me and Mitch's old band, so we did some really cool gigs with them because they treat musicians like rock stars.
They do, yes.
So, yeah. So that was awesome. Those are some of the greatest gigs I've ever played. But yeah, there was lots of gigs too that were terrible. Like one gig, we go in and there's nobody there. It's this country bar who hired us, assuming that Creekwater Junkies was a country band. Little did they know that we were a hard rock band. So nobody showed up. We were just sitting there waiting to play. And eventually, after the sound check, they realized what kind of band we were. So they go, yeah, we're just not going to have you guys tonight. But here's like a bottle of rum and like a couple $100. Sorry for having you come all the way out here.
I guess at least they paid you and gave you some booze. Most people would have been like, yeah, get the fuck out.
Yeah. But yeah, that's up there with one of the worst gigs we've ever played.
That's gotta be pretty bad. You don't even end up playing the gig. Like, oh shit.
Yeah, exactly. We got through sound check and they're like, yep, nope, not you boys. You boys ain't playing tonight. Don't you guys know any Alan Jackson? Well, we do.
We do, but
yeah.
Oh man, that's badass. Well, Raiden, thank you so much for coming on, man. It's been an absolute blast. Everyone, stonecoldcrows.com. Go check it out right now. Download the new tune. Buy some merch.
While you're there at stonecoldcrows.com, make sure you go and swing by our online bar. It's called the Crow Bar. And there you'll be able to find all kinds of drinks that Mitch is concocting up. And there's all kinds of like Prohibition era drinks on there. So yeah, check it out. And then if you go to YouTube, you can check out how to make those drinks on his podcast, From the Crow's Mouth. And everybody remember, dare to be different and create cool shit.
All right, guys, there you have it. My chat with Bryson Emmons from the Stone Cold Crows, as well as Avum, which is a fun bird punk rock project that obviously, as you heard, we talked a little bit about, but I think I'm going to have him on again just to talk about that project because it seems like such a fun time. But be sure to go check out their brand new single you heard all about. I will have the link down below to their website. Go check it out. Buy it, support them. They are great guys who deserve your support, and they play some kick-ass hard rock and roll, theatrical style stuff. So go check them out. They deserve your support. And I thank you so very much for listening to this episode of The Harder Show. If you would like to help this show out, be sure to leave a like or a rating. If you can, 5-star ratings really help this show grow and climb the charts, either on the Apple Podcast app or as well as on the Spotify app. You can leave a 5-star rating or rating of any kind now on Spotify, and it really helps the show grow. So if you would take a minute to do that, that would really mean a lot to me. Thank you so very much. And be sure to share this episode if you enjoyed it with your friends on social media. Be sure to follow The Harder Show on social media. We have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you would like to be on the show, or you have a question or want to talk about something that was said on the show, hit me up anytime at thehardershow@gmail.com. And if you want to go a step further in helping to support The Harder Show, you can check out our Patreon. That's right, The Harder Show Patreon, patreon.com/The Harder Show. Go ahead and find a tier that is right for you, and you will get some fun, exclusive content you will not find anywhere else that I will be launching this month. So I'm very excited about that because I did hit my first goal. So thank you very much to my patrons. And you will also get a personalized shout out on every episode of The Harder Show, just like my patrons, my hotheads. We, of course, have the OG hothead, my friend, Mr. Scotty D, who has been a supporter of this show really honestly from day one, and a patron, pretty much from day one. So Scotty, thank you so very much, my man, for all of the support and all of your love over the years and your friendship over the years. I've literally been good buddies with Scott since like grade 7 or 8, I think, something like that, like grade 9, somewhere in that ballpark. So I think about grade 7, 8. So Scotty, thank you very much, my brother. You know how much I love you. Hope to get to see you soon and give you a big bear hug. And then, of course, I need to give a huge shout out as well to the Grey Rooms podcast. Everyone over at the Grey Rooms, Jason Wilson, the creative, Brooks Bigley, Cassie Petit, everyone over there. Graham Rowett, Hale, JM, everyone over at the Grey Rooms and the Grey Rooms Discord. Thank you so very much to the Grey Rooms podcast for not only being a patron and being the reason that I did hit my goal with such a generous patronage, but also just being fantastic and having such a great vote of confidence in me to, share me with your listeners on your podcast feed, which if you guys missed, the Grey Rooms did do that. And that was such a big deal to me. So thank you guys so very much. The Grey Rooms is my favorite podcast, not just because they are a patron, but because they are fantastic. Not even fantastic. They are the best audio drama podcast out there if you are a fan of horror. So go check them out, the Grey Rooms podcast. And if you want a little shout like that every episode, check out the Patreon. Get on there. Patreon.com/The Harder Show. And with that, I am ready to sign out here today. Thank you guys so very much for tuning in. And I will catch you next time on The Harder Show. Take it easy, guys.